How is everybody doing today? Welcome to episode 35 of the Sounds Like Liberty podcast here on the Launchpad Media, always launching ideas in your direction. I am your illustrious host, Nicky P, here with my lovely wife and co-host, Lizzie. How you doing today, Lizzie?
Very well. Hello.
You sound almost more animated than me.
I know. Weird, right?
You're always weird.
I know.
So
I like weird.
I'm gonna lay this. Maybe we have some beef starting with a fellow
Beef?
podcaster out there.
We're not starting beef, are we?
I'm always starting beef.
It's what's for dinner.
Yeah, because we're on keto. We have to have beef because we're on keto.
Pretty much.
It's high fat content.
It does have
not
high
lean.
fat content.
Anyways, so how long have we been doing this? About a year now. You and me have been doing it.
The podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
And so, was it probably last April? We started doing song analysis to start out every episode.
Okay.
Okay. And we're putting our IP intentions to the test here.
Okay.
Because there's this other gentleman that's trying to steal our steam on it.
Oh, okay.
By bringing Liberty lyrics to people in podcasts.
Okay.
So I need y'all to go out and I need you to listen to the Pseudo-Lectual podcast.
Okay.
Hosted by Mr. Sue. And I'm not saying tweet at him your angry faces for like trying to steal our legitimate idea. But he's totally ripping it off. Now, I'm as a libertarian, I'm against intellectual property. And so if he thinks he can do it better, by all means, I'm just gonna be the arrogant one and say I don't think he's doing it better.
I see. Okay.
But
well,
you be the judge of that. So go listen to the podcast. Tell us and him what you think. And then just remember who the OG lyrical dissecting people are.
okay. Right on.
If by chance you do like what we're doing here with the lyrical dissection, myself, Sherry Voluntary of the Sherry Voluntary Show, and Luke Tatum of the Culture of Peace podcast have the Liberty 365 program where we send an email to you every day with a new song and a dissection by all the three of us. It's a cool program. It's a paid program, but it's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. People in there seem to enjoy it so far. Let's get on to our dissection today.
Yeah, let's do this. This is should be an exciting one.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna try to not be a sarcastic dick about it. I don't know that that's possible.
Just kind of keep the levels of sarcasm to a low murmur. At least a dull roar.
No, honey, if I'm gonna be anyway, I'm gonna be the way I'm gonna be. So today we are going to be looking at Peace Train by Cat Stevens. Or do they have his actual name here? Yusuf Islam.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, now I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be. Something good has begun. Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be. Someday it's going to come. 'Cause I'm on the edge of darkness. There rides the peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country. Come take me home again.
What do you think his idea of peace is?
Well, he's throwing something in here that I inherently disliked, which is thinking about the world as one.
Right.
And that's not possible.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is to make that possible, we all have to believe the same things. And I do not see that as being something that's likely to happen. Probably.
I don't know that I see that as being something that's necessarily good.
I don't think it is either.
I think our differences are useful as long as we don't bludgeon each other with them.
So you like the right's version of tolerance, not the left's.
I suppose I don't really believe in a right or a left because they're kind of meeting in the middle at this point. But I do like the idea of having individual choice about what you want to believe and respecting that for everyone.
Yeah, interesting. Other than that, so this song was written in what, like the 60s or 70s? Probably the 70s.
Probably, yeah.
And does it feel like it's gotten any closer to his vision of peace amongst all nations?
No, but he's also not really. It's kind of a fluffy song. There's not a lot to it.
Okay.
He's just saying, like, I feel good about life because I think life should be good and it'll probably get better. Maybe. I'd like it to.
Oh, peace train, sounding louder. Glide on the peace train. Come on now, peace train. Yes, peace train, holy roller. Everyone jump upon the peace train. Come on now, peace train. Get your bags together. Go bring your good friends too, 'cause it's getting nearer. It soon will be with you.
I don't know why when you say it, it sounds like a Neil Diamond song to me. It's just...
They're coming on, yeah!
it's funny to me. But yeah, still, kind of a lot of fluffy...
Get your bags together.
Fluffy stuff. Get your friends. You want your friends to come to the amazing, wonderful thing that's probably going to happen at some point for some reason that I can't really define.
Oh, man. So now come and join the living. It's not so far from you, and it's getting nearer. Soon it will all be true. Let's see here. There's a lot of repetition in this song, but now I've been crying lately, thinking about the world as it is. Why must we go on hating? Why can't we live in bliss? It's a good question. Is it because people are inherently shitty or inherently stupid?
I feel like those two options are possibly not the only explanations, but it's probably a bit more nuanced than all that.
You think it's more nuanced than that?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm interested.
Well, I mean, I don't believe that people are inherently shitty, but I believe that people make a lot of shitty choices and then
inherently stupid.
Limit their options.
I give you the option that they're dumb or they're evil.
Okay.
I think they're dumb. And that's unfortunate. But honey, they voted for Donald Trump for president.
I understand. In fact,
what you're saying. They still vote for presidents.
I do. It's hard to argue against that.
Like, there are people that still believe in a freaking monarchy, apparently.
Yeah, in the world, yeah.
Yeah. Not thrilled with all that. I mean, so in general, like, I like the song. I think it's very libertarian in that we all want peace. That's really what this whole thing is about. I think it's naive as fuck.
Yeah, it's pretty...
And...
bland, frankly.
Kind of boring in some respects.
Yeah, it's really...
so...
repetitive.
I want to put a call out there.
Okay.
I want to do a cover version of this.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah. And we're not going to do a Neil Diamond version of it. Maybe I'll do that personally for Liz, because she seems to think I can do a Neil Diamond cover of it.
I think you could do a Neil Diamond cover of just about anything, babe.
Together, go bring your friends too, 'cause it's getting nearer. Soon we'll be with you. They're coming on the air. Okay. No, instead, I want to do a heavy metal version of this. Generally, I'm not a huge fan of heavy metal songs. But for some reason, I'm hearing like a post-hardcore heavy metal version of this song, and I think it would sound kicking ass.
Well, I mean, you
I'll throw
definitely
it out
take
there.
it in a different direction.
Anybody who wants to re-record Peace Train with me to make it less boring and maybe update it for the masses. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe the vision will sound better if it's like more aggressive and angry about it.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I guess maybe I do feel like we could. If we could change the way people are so dumb,
Yeah.
that we could get to peace. Like, we're not far away. It's just, we're going the wrong direction.
So we need to be more aggressive about peace.
We need to murder the masses, perhaps. I don't know.
I feel okay. You just lost me there.
I mean, that's the question. Do we have to get rid of the infidels and the non-believers?
Well, I feel like that's what they've been trying to do, and it hasn't worked thus far. So
Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just yell aggressively about how stupid they are.
Also hasn't worked thus far.
No, that's the thing. We stopped yelling about how stupid they were. We let them take over the schools.
Oh, okay.
Like, we started coddling the commies, and now we're here.
Interesting.
We need some good public shaming, perhaps.
You're talking about like
Look,
oldie stocks.
I'll shame no one for life choices. That's perfectly okay. You do as you're gonna do. I will shame people for being stupid.
I see.
Not mentally handicapped. That's nothing. I don't shame people for that. They can't help it. But stupid. You can go.
Stupid is a choice.
You can go and educate yourself.
Okay.
It's not that hard.
Gotcha.
There's the internet. It exists. We're on the internet. You can
Currently.
just listen to this podcast
On the internet.
and be at least more educated about music.
Yes.
If you want to be really educated, I'd recommend checking out like Scott Horton or Tom Woods or anybody who has like a serious academic podcast about this. We're not the serious academic podcast, though.
No, we're not.
We're just an asshole and his wife talking about music.
I mean, I'm not going to touch that one, but...
She's on board with it, folks, I promise. So...
All right, well, where are we scoring this fabulous
I think it's an Eric July song.
piece of writing? Do you?
I do.
Eric July.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
Because he wants peace.
I think the message of peace is probably the most important thing libertarians have to offer.
Okay.
Perhaps an armed neutrality.
I feel like this is pretty fluffy.
I mean, I'm not going to argue it's not fluffy.
But
fluffy doesn't affect the message, does it?
I suppose not. Peace definitely comes through as the message.
So what are you going to go? You Lou Bega in this shit?
I mean, I would kind of lean closer to a Lou Bega just because of the level of non-specificity.
Because it's cornbally?
It's really cornbally, and it's really not... Like, I don't feel a lot of oomph in this song. It just seems like...
that's what I'm saying. So let's get some people to get together with me.
Give it more oomph.
We're going to give it some more oomph and see how that works.
All right.
All right. Welcome to I Heard This Happen, the segment for aging hipsters. Each week we scour Bandcamp for underground new releases to wow your teenage children. So without further ado, here's new music. So, this week, and I Heard This Happen, we're going to talk about some records.
Yes, let's.
You want to go first, Liz? You got your record all prepped and primed and ready to go?
Sure. I've got a record called Hindsight by a band called Hometown Losers. They are from Florida, if I remember correctly. And I don't even hold that against them because this record is enjoyable. It's really, I mean, it's basically taking me back to that time when I first sort of heard the emo bands back in the day. I mean, I can only think of My Chemical Romance back then, but there's others. Like the Used.
It doesn't sound like My Chemical
Romance. It doesn't sound like My Chemical Romance. It's not polished. It's just
Liz doesn't
a guy
pop
screaming
or genre. Liz doesn't really understand music. I think
girls.
she just understands the feel.
I understand the way it makes me feel, and I connect with the angst in this, and I like the lyrical content and how they use metaphors and harmonies and whatnot. I like to. It's a song about burying songs in the ground or burying something, angsty.
You like to bury things in the ground?
No, not particularly, but when listening to lyrics about, relationships ending, death metaphors make it more of something.
I mean, I guess.
I don't know. I like the record. You can check it out. It came out on the 5th.
Okay. All right. Well, I chose Astronoid by Astronoid.
Okay.
Came out on February 1st.
Ooh.
The band is based out of Boston, Massachusetts. I kind of thought for a minute they were based out of like the UK or something because their record label is out of Finland.
Interesting.
Which is interesting, yes. Yeah. It's a 9-track rock album, and I'm saying rock because I had difficulty kind of labeling them genre-wise.
I see.
I'm honestly not sure what genre it is. It's kind of like pop punk to listen to, but it's really atmospheric and it doesn't wear the label well. Because somehow it's like it reminds me of 4 Years Strong, 30 Seconds to Mars, The Used, and Mew. And if you're listening to that, you realize that Mew sounds nothing like hardly any of those other bands. Maybe a little bit like 30 Seconds to Mars. So I often tell people that the best in Vice's music is just more reverb. And these guys, without knowing it, because they don't know me, have unknowingly proven me right.
Nice.
This thing is awash in so much freaking reverb, especially on the vocals, that it's just insane.
Okay.
The album finds a nice pocket. It's interesting because it's like got these really heavy, hard drum beats underneath just a soupy mess of synths and vocals that like occasionally I'll hear guitar parts peeking out. Like, honestly, the first time I listened to it, like, I loved the music, and I was like, I don't know how I like this mix. Even by my standards, I think the reverb's too much.
Yeah.
I changed my mind on it. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was enjoyable. I liked what I heard of it. It was very...
Yeah. I guess these are on the Blood music label out of Finland is what it's
interesting.
called.
Very interesting.
So they got some pretty heavy stuff on there, and these guys are... they're coming through, actually, Cleveland. They'll be here, I think in April, maybe. They're playing with Tesseract.
Okay.
And some other big modern prog metal band.
Nice.
I don't remember. Maybe Between the Buried and Me or something. I don't remember. Okay. My buddy Brian actually played with them a couple months ago. He said his band Third World Leader.
Uh-huh.
One of his bands. He's also in Puma Thurman with me. But he just played with them at the Foundry. So.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. As an aside, I'm going to bring a second disc to the table today.
Well, I hope it's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's mine.
Okay, cool.
I'm not going to talk much about it, folks, but I did release a new EP called Please Put Down That Knife. It's 3 songs. You can find it at Bandcamp. Liz should probably, when she does the show notes for me, she should probably try to put it on there.
Yeah, I will. I want people to hear this. This is basically the remnants of a rock opera.
Yeah, so what happened was I lost a hard drive with all the information on it at one point.
Yeah.
And most of the information was the songs for this record.
Yeah.
It was originally a 6-song disc about the devil and like dating the devil who saved you from a suicide attempt.
Right. Which is an interesting concept for a rock opera.
It's a Nick kind of concept, though, if you know me at all.
For sure.
But unfortunately, losing all the data, I didn't feel like going back and recreating it. So instead, I just took the numbers that I had and kind of called it an EP.
Yeah, so this is
It loses part of what made it worthwhile, but...
The record that could have been.
Yeah, but I think the songs on it are fantastic.
I mean, my
I
absolute.
could not release them. Like I got sick of sitting on them. I'm like, these are some of the best things I've ever worked on.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
Nothing going on with them. So I'll put them out there.
Nice.
Please put down that knife. You can find it on the Sounds Like Liberty playlist that I have up on Spotify. Check out. Is it burnstothesoul.bandcamp.com?
Yep.
It should be there. So, I guess let's get a move on here. So I'm gonna preface this by saying, like, we did this interview last week, and I had a blast. And I am going to assure you that if you are not a member of the Freedom Choir, please go sign up today. I don't care if it's just for 1 month. It's worth worth $1 or whatever it is to sign up for a month.
There's a ton of this interview.
This interview is way too long for me to fit it all in, and let's just say there's some heat in this guy. I got along pretty famously with Alan Mosley.
Yeah,
and
big shocker.
Yeah, go figure that me and like the snarkiest guy I know on the internet.
Right, the snark's very strong.
I'm not going to talk about it anymore so that we can fit as much in as we can. But seriously, go join the Freedom Choir. Go to ancapmusic.com and click the Freedom Choir tab. Is it at the top or is it the support tab? Do you have a support tab?
Maybe.
All right. Yeah. Just go to the support tab, I think, on the webpage. I do too many things. Pay the $1 to listen to it for a month. If you want to cancel after that, go right ahead. But honestly, like, this is hilarious. And there are all the other interviews that we've done, like all the stuff that doesn't make it to the actual interview, we put on there as like the full thing, the greetings and hey, how you doing? All the stuff that's too spicy to put out to the general public. Which, if you can imagine the way I run my mouth, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, well.
And it's also, for those of you who don't like the music running in the background, which I don't really care, fuck you, I like it. There is no music on the interview version that's up on the Freedom Choir site.
Oh, there you go.
Anyways, without further ado, here was our interview with Alan Mosley of The Gold Standard.
What's going on?
Hey.
You have a far deeper voice today than you normally do. Do you guys like record your episode at a weird speed and then like chipmunk it or something?
I don't think so, but I'm at home today instead of at the studio, and so naturally that means I'm more baritone.
Okay, I get it. You're just rolling out of bed. You got that early morning baritone in it. I hear that. That's generally where I am at this point in time.
There you go.
Yeah, I got you.
You can do whatever you want.
Anyways, so on that aside, how did you find yourself in the Liberty Movement?
So first of all, right off the bat, I'm going to say, so this is where I take heat from like your capital L libertarian types, because they're all status, so who cares? But I don't really care about a liberty movement. Like, I'm so over that. We on the show a lot of times we talk about more just I want people to focus on being successful libertarians, and that in doing so they're going to fan those flames more brightly than they would by trying to hitch their wagons to some supposed movement.
Well, use the hashtag, bruh. Hashtag more libertarian millionaires.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I mean, as far as when I came along to it, I was really more of a libertarian at a fairly young age. And I come from southern Middle Tennessee, that when I was a kid, I still had lots of family friends and uncles and cousins and things like that still had some of that kind of like Southern pride, individualism, anti-authority, anti-state.
Racism.
Don't shoot the sense. Yeah, racism. That's right. Shoot the census man if he comes up the driveway. That sort of thing. But I mean, all joking aside, it was something we've talked about before. Is the default position for the people who were around me was to distrust government, and the onus on them was to prove otherwise. Whereas I'm afraid that today it's much more common for people's default position is to trust government until proven otherwise. And I think that's a very dangerous default position.
Yeah.
The most dangerous.
So, I mean, I grew up at a pretty young age with just, I was that really creepy kid that I tell people, no joke, like the attitude and mannerisms and the way I speak and carry myself today at 33 years old, this is literally how I was when I was 7. I was an intimidating little kid. Yeah, right? And so
those are my favorite kids.
To be polite, we call them precocious, and behind their backs we call them assholes. Yeah, I know, because I was one of them.
But I mean, I had that kind of individualist streak, anti-authority, just generally distrusting of authority figures. Not like I was wearing bandanas and throwing bricks through windows or anything. Not the cartoon caricature of the anarchist, but more just I know what I'm doing and I'm not bothering anyone, so leave me alone. Your rules are dumb. Well, and that carried on into political thought as I got older.
Anyways, so what is your musical taste? You already said that you don't really kind of carte blanche like an artist in general.
Yeah.
But do you feel the same about genres, or you just do you have a kind of place that you gravitate towards musically?
Yeah. So first of all, you can't cut this for time, because I'm going to be really mad as a musician to come on the music show of the Liberty Movement and then not talk about music.
Oh no, the music stuff gets kept. I cut everything else.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So I started off as kind of like the pop rock John Mayer type of sound, and then after I got through college, I had a really awesome professor who was a jazz musician, who was a jazz pianist, and that kind of opened me to that world a little bit. But here's the thing, and you'll get this as a performer as well, is that I would go to, I'd go play at a coffee shop or something, and I would play my dinky little pop rocky type tunes, and I'd get whatever golf claps. But then I would go to a place, maybe I'd get invited to sing somewhere, and I would do some Sinatra, and then I would get roaring applause. Mm-hmm. And that's the free market in action, right? That's the people telling you this is what you need to do. It might not even necessarily be your favorite music, but the people, this is what they want. They like this more. Mm-hmm. And so I started gravitating towards
and
the
last
jazz.
Night, that was Journey and fucking Brown Eyed Girl.
Yeah, exactly.
But I chased the money.
Yeah, exactly. So, I started doing more just classic jazz standards and trying to be, a Tennessee version of Michael Bublé and that sort of thing.
Nice.
And even with that, he's popular today, and I guess in some ways he's helped to repopularize some standards and things. But
first couple albums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to go there, but yeah, I agree with that too. But the last songs that I've ever performed or recorded are all kind of really more in the Sinatra style nowadays than the Bublé style, just because he's Michael Bublé and I'm not, so there's reasons. Yeah. But I really got into the jazz thing, and Oscar Peterson, and his album Night Train, which has been the influence of a bajillion people. Yeah. Like the original Georgia on My Mind and stuff like that. Really, that's music that, even though it's not the most popular music when you think of top 40, it is the kind of music that you can go a lot of places, and if it's playing, people listen.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
That's the American standard.
I'm more
thing,
of a
right?
Louis Prima kind of guy, but
yeah.
Okay.
But that's because I'm a greasy dago, and I feel like I have to be.
You gotta love Louis.
Well, I mean,
a greasy dago, not just a dago.
I live south of Nashville, and so in that area, popular music, typical Billboard Top 40 is popular, but then also country music. Yeah. But I actually went to a place not long ago, a little kind of country home type diner type place that has a stage, and they sometimes have country music artists or whatever, and they had a jazz quartet in there.
Oh.
Piano, sax, drums, and a stand-up bass player. And so it kind of clashes with the decor a little bit of what's normal for that type of environment, not picking and grinning. But again, it was one of those things. It's actually as someone who loves that type of music or just loves music in general, it's really moving to walk into a place and sit down and to listen to that genre of music, to listen to Coltrane and things like that. Mm-hmm. And you can look around the room, and granted, it's not the type of music where people are jumping up and down and banging their heads, of course, but they played Georgia on My Mind. Mm-hmm. And the room just fell silent while they were playing. And when they got done playing, people were tearing up a little bit and clapping, and especially your older audience too, and that matters to you see some of the 70, 80 year olds in the audience, and they're misty eyed, and you're like, wow, that's something different than typical top 40.
I get it.
You don't see people listening to DJ Khaled and tearing up, right?
Right.
I've got his motive, Liz. See, it's all about blowjobs, and he wants the ones without teeth already. I get it. I'm inside this guy's head. I see it.
I feel like your mind
the entire basis of his performance, though. That's what
going
it is.
Somewhere else.
You play for the ones that, yeah. All right, we're cool. I got you.
But no, I do. I mean, I love the standards. I love those songs that people have memories and history attached to, and I think, yeah, there's definitely something to that.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am.
So,
I mean, outside of that, like I said, I mean, I could give you like a top 3 or 5 lists of artists. I genuinely like the artist, but you won't find a ton of correlation between them, other than maybe as a musician, you say, well, they're good musicians.
Well, and if you're a musician, then you also understand that there's definitely a firm difference between performer and writer, and at which point those things are different. Like, there's, like, to sit there and call Sinatra or Bublé in either case like a writer, I don't know that I really care much about their writing, but as performers, like you don't get any better than that. You know, most of that stuff was written by other guys anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're right. I mean, you know, like I tell people, I can go through the list really quick of like whose albums do I have stocked in my house or in my car, and I have most of what they've done. John Mayer's on the list because that's who I grew up learning to emulate play style wise. Lost Lonely Boys.
Nice.
I love the Lost Lonely Boys.
That first record of theirs was actually considerably better than I was expecting. I got jaded at the point when they actually came out, and it was stuff that my parents liked. So I was kind of taken aback when like I actually liked the record. What was there's one song on there that I absolutely love, and it's very jazz inspired, the song itself, and like the harmonies are just fucking unbelievable on it. Like
Is it from their first album?
I want to say it's from the big one that hit. I'm actually not even sure if that's their first one. I kind of assume it is, but.
I'm sure it is. I bet you're thinking about a song called "More Than Love" that was actually sung by the bass player.
I'm gonna have to look it up now. It's gonna bug me. See, more than Love, the ballad one.
Yeah, it's a ballad one.
And that's a great song. It's not my favorite. Although I think the one that I really like might be right before that one. I'm gonna look it up now because I'm gonna know it immediately. So Liz, ask Alan about his a favorite moment attached to music.
Okay. I mean, I think he was gonna finish his list of people he has all the records, but.
Well, it's a pretty short list. I mean,
okay, I can so there you go.
So
we can do both.
So I'll give you like 5 that are just totally random artists of different eras or genres or whatever. So John Mayer, Lost Lonely Boys. So we'll just say all the crooners are in one. So like Bublé, Sinatra, whatever. We'll just say that's one thing.
Is Sinatra your favorite crooner?
He's my favorite to base myself off of.
Okay.
And that's more practicality, like vocal range and stuff like that.
Sure.
You know. I think Queen,
sure.
Which is nothing like Lost Lonely Boys or John Mayer, but Queen.
Yeah, but they are amazing.
No one argues
for sure.
with Freddie Mercury. I did some yesterday.
Yeah, and the Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles, yeah.
Interesting choice.
It's a bunch of guys.
And so I know a lot of those are not anything like each other, but that's probably like my 5 list right there.
Nice.
And it's because I like a lot of their songs. Like I'm looking at individual songs and saying, hey, this is good everything. This is good writing. This is good composition. This is good performance. This is good everything. And so that's why they make that list.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot of those. And like the Eagles are one of those that it's kind of grudging, but I'm still like, yeah, they're all good. Okay, fine.
I was right. Just for the record, the song that I like is Nobody Else.
Nobody Else.
Comes right after More Than Love. On the
there you go.
Yeah.
And it's got just this awesome like rhythmic guitar part that has always stuck with me, and I love his guitar tone.
Yeah.
It's just that it's a jangly Strat sound.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes. Yeah. And I've always been a Strat player, so that resonates with me.
Well, that's funny is that I'm not. Like, I don't particularly care for the sound of a Strat, but
in that context,
in that context, it's everything you want it to be.
Yeah, well, can't argue with that.
It's some people just knew how to use it. That's all it is. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I tend to be a Les Paul guy as far as sound goes.
Well, it's as far as like if you're getting into the weeds of tone and stuff like that, because I've been around the hardcore music types who are like, here's my 18 pedals and my board, and this is my preamp and my post, and this is how I get my quote unquote my tone, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people this is what I do to get, like, if you want to know the tone Alan likes, this is how Alan gets his tone.
Camper.
So you take a Strat, you plug it into a twin reverb, and you turn it on.
The end.
No, it works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's my tone, but that works for jazz, and that works for kind of like the John Mayer type pop rocks. I mean, that's me. That's where I'm at.
I will never get too crazy about guitar tone, but I used to be a lunatic about my bass tone.
Yeah.
And I had it down to a science because I had like just the most insane bass tone for what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally, to me, it was like carrying around an axe and chopping people in half.
That's what you were going for.
Yeah.
That was the feel.
Well, my bass tone was a biamped system with different distortions running on both the high and low channels.
It's ridiculous.
With ultra high gain and compression. It was really intense. Now, it wasn't inherently a quote unquote good tone because it was mostly distortion, but it was my tone. Nobody was getting it.
Yeah, it's yours.
There you go.
Yeah, I get that. So to answer Lizzie's question of a moment tied to music, I actually have a really good one for that.
Oh, sweet.
When I was still in school, so I would have only been like 21 or 22 years old. Or I think it was a little bit earlier than that. Do you remember when I think it was like the tsunami that happened near Japan or something like that? It was like a big international thing.
Yeah.
And they were having a United Way benefit concert, and it was being hosted in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was like at their whatever stadium or whatever it was, and they had like your typical like local celebrities and stuff. Like the local weatherman was the MC, and they had like Vince Gill and Ricky Skaggs and people like that were there to play and donate money and stuff like that.
That's an underrated guitar player, by the way. Just throwing it in.
Yes, correct. And so they were having this benefit concert, and of course I don't know anything about this kind of stuff because I'm just some poor kid. And I come to find out that a lot the people who are performing in the show, that of course they themselves have oftentimes written big checks to donate. Like Vince Gill donated and Ricky Skaggs donated and blah 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 blah. And so there was this social club, like this women's group, which is code for really rich ladies.
Right.
And they were going to sponsor an act to be in the show. And somehow through some finagling on our part that mostly involved enticing old ladies with our young male band plus lying through our teeth, they sponsored us to perform in this United Way benefit concert along with these other like actual celebrities and musicians and stuff. And they not only that, but they actually had us be the opening act. Now, it's cool to be the opening act, but I also know in hindsight that they had us be the opening act because they were thinking we'll get these stupid kids out of the way and be done with them so that we can have the real people shine.
That's generally how it works.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works, but that's okay. And I'll never forget because we played a Jason Mraz, we played a John Mayer, and then we played a couple of originals that night, which was really cool. We got to play original music at this big concert with other like famous people there and all that, which is a really big thrill for a young kid who's never done anything like that before. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget when we were in the wings getting ready to walk on stage. Like they're announcing us and we wait for them to say our name and the applause starts and you walk on stage. Right as we were getting ready to go on, my drummer, whose name was Kevin, and he's wearing a giant, foam cowboy hat because, he's a retard. Right as they announce our name, and we're literally in stride to walk onto stage in front of whatever it was, 10,000 people, he leans over to me and the other guy in the band, Grayson, and he just whispers, hold on really quick. What's the language on your show? Can we say the F word?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Haven't I already been saying it?
So Kevin leans over, and this is the last thing we heard before we walked on stage for the biggest performance of our lives. He said, "We're gonna fucking blow it."
Oh God!
What a dude!
Why would you do that?
totally deadpan, just complete serious face. He just looked right at me and says, "We're gonna fucking blow it." And of course we bust out laughing because that was kind of his style of humor. But that was the last thing we heard before we went on and played the biggest show of our lives in front of the most people and whatever. And like, you can actually see country music stars and stuff in the front row.
You cut that negativity out of your life, right?
No, I actually adopted it. I molded myself after it from there on out.
There you go.
Terrible.
But I will say this though, and you might connect with me on this too as a musician. In the biggest shows I've ever been in, and oftentimes when I've had the most fun, I don't remember performing at all.
Well, big shows are interesting in that, like, I think there's so many people there, so there's no chance of like really being affected by the crowd in that respect. Like, one of the things I do is I have a company called The Introvert Musician, where I coach musicians with self-esteem and like stage anxiety. And one of the nice things about playing into a giant audience is that you don't really get to focus on any one person, so there's nobody there that can personally affect you. Like, or if you're playing to 10 people and one of them's got a shitty face on, like, that can ruin your night. And so big shows have a tendency, like, you kind of go off of just the vibe of where you are, and that works for it. Plus, it's always cool to put it on a resume anyways. So. Yeah, see, for me, it's just totally blacked out. Like, I remember him saying that to us, and then I remember us walking off stage to, the applause and us saying, "Hey, that was fun." Like, I don't remember anything in between.
Wow.
Interesting.
Like, when I'm actually out there under the lights and singing the song or whatever, like, it's all just gone. Yeah.
Okay, so moving along a little bit, what is your favorite performance you've ever been to?
So that would have to be the John Mayer Trio at the Ryman, and because of what we said before, it's the combination. I mean, I like John Mayer, but I think that the John Mayer Trio and that style was his peak as an artist.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the atmosphere, being at the Ryman, the kind of place where you really feel like your feet are digging into the floorboards when you're there, and just how the sound resonates in a place. Like, it's one of those types of places where, like, you see the advertisements, oh yeah, it's historic, blah 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 blah, but it's really the kind of place that when you go through, like, you're going up the stairs and you're going by the product tables or whatever, because it's kind of a relatively small venue. I mean, you're talking maybe there's a few hundred people in the Ryman. It's not a big place.
It's not like the photos I have of Metallica at the Q last night.
No. But when you actually get through the double doors to go into the actual auditorium, or what used to be the chapel or whatever, it just washes over you that I'm in a place that, I mean, at least by American standards, like, this is a very historic place.
Since I have a musician on here, I gotta ask. So, in your mind's eye, picture this. So you have a basketball arena. And you have a stage in the center of it. And you got like some moving lights around the drum kit and some lights from the ceiling. Nothing else on stage but a drum kit and the other guys in the band. Full 360-degree exposure to the stage. How does that feel to you? Because I saw a photo that was Metallica's stage setup, and I could give two shits about Metallica. But just the stark idea of nothing but the musicians on stage blew my fucking mind as a performer. I was just like that is amazing. Like, get everything out there.
So are you asking my perspective as a listener or as a musician on that stage?
I'm asking you as someone who's performed. How does that stage design make you feel?
It makes so everything.
We can edit out the fact that Metallica had this stage design, because I was not happy about that either. I would have much rather somebody I liked had that stage design.
So me being the greedy capitalist that I am, all I was thinking as a performer when as you were describing that was, I'm about to get paid, motherfuckers.
It's true.
Yeah, that's all I was thinking. That's like a window into my greedy capitalist soul right there. As you were describing, I was picturing myself at, whatever.
He's like, I'm at a fucking basketball arena. I give two shits about anything else.
Yeah, I'm at the center court of the Lakers, playing my dinky little music or whatever, or I'm doing a jazz performance. All I'm thinking is, I could probably retire off of this. I mean, I live pretty modestly, right? Like, I don't need a yacht.
We could really hope Metallica would fucking hang it up here sometime soon.
Well, you know.
I'm sorry for interjecting. I was just curious because it's on my mind. I saw some pictures from their show, and I'd never seen it before. Like, normally, like, stage design, and like everybody goes for lights and towers, and to see somebody with just a white fucking stage and the musicians on it literally blew my mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, usually the answer is people like that hang it up when they die. Like Glenn Frey of the Eagles. If you just croak, then you won't have to worry about your legacy anymore.
Look, we still have the important part of that band with us.
Don Henley?
Fuck Don Henley. Joe Walsh.
Joe Walsh, okay. Can we put that on a quote too? Fuck Don Henley.
Fuck Don Henley. Well, Lizzie kind of touched on this for just a split. The Eagles are one of those polarizing groups that a lot of people, maybe because of how much play they've gotten on just general mixed radio.
Shit. I like the Eagles.
Yeah,
played his shit.
And so a lot of people just naturally, like the hipsters in the crowd, are thinking, "Well, I don't like the Eagles because everybody likes the Eagles, so I don't."
That's the song you're going for.
That's the one that always comes to mind.
Oh God,
that's how
it is. So your go-to what comes to mind Eagles song is Tequila Sunrise. That's probably a psychological thing.
It's because
it's overdone. I've heard every acoustic act every fucking time I ever hear the Eagles. Really? That's always what I hear.
Okay.
Personally, Life in the Fast Lane is way more interesting to me.
It is. So I mean, like, some of my favorite Eagles songs are "Wasted Time," "After the Thrill Is Gone."
That's a good one
because. Yeah, I mean, and again, because I like every aspect of the art, and so, like, the songwriting in those songs, like the theme and the lyrics, like they're as someone who has written songs, I have often told people, if I could write just one or two lines as good as a couple of lines from one of the Eagles' 27 hits, I would consider myself a success for all time.
My only issue, one of my biggest issues, I think, is that, like, they went to Joe Walsh. And, like, I think he gets kind of overlooked in the grand scheme of things with them. And that's disappointing to me because Joe Walsh is a badass in and of his own right.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Had his own career before the Eagles ever happened. And, some of the...
Now, I will say this about Joe Walsh. Because, I mean, I like Joe Walsh. I got to see the Eagles back when they were all still alive. It was right after they had released that Long Road Out of Eden album that they did, and they were on tour for that. And it was a cool show. I mean, first of all, it was a cool show because it's the freaking Eagles, and they sound totally like the Eagles today. Like, they sound more like the Eagles today than they did in the 70s, if that makes sense.
Oh no, it makes total sense because stage production's better, and they can pay to have 50,000 people on stage.
Yeah, and so, but here was the thing, though, is that, so first of all, like, they're not stupid, right? Like, they know that they've released a new album and they're plugging it, but at the same time, overwhelming majority of people are there to hear the classics.
Oh, yeah.
And so they literally walked on stage, and Don Henley walks up to the microphone, and he says, we're going to play some tunes off of our new album, but we know that most of you are here for not that. So bear with us while we get through a few of them, and then we'll play classics the rest of the night. They just said that out loud to the audience. And people cheered, and then they ended up, I mean, this ended up being like a 2.5 or 3 hour show. They played a lot of music, especially for older guys.
But have you ever watched that really, really fucking long documentary about the Eagles?
You're talking about the Eagles 1 or whatever?
I don't know. Things like fucking...
Because there's more than one at this point.
Yeah.
I watched it on YouTube, I think, and there was literally... It was like 3 hours or something. Something just absolutely ludicrous of documentary on them, and...
It's so interesting.
I mean, so much of that band was just straight fucking capitalism.
Yeah, absolutely.
They made this, like, literally, they had a bass player quit because, well, I want to sing my song, and fucking... What's his name? Glenn Frey looks at him and says, he points to Don Henley. He says, that's what they listen for. You want to get your song on the album, he sings it.
I mean, like there's plenty of ways that you can paint the Eagles in a negative light, especially during like all their tumultuous years and the infighting and all that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that but that same band in different parts of like the documentary or whatever, they'll tell you like when they first got signed, when them going on tour meant they were doing like state fairs and stuff like that. They got signed by a label that already had people like Linda Ronstadt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And them being the young, bright-eyed new guys, they had like a little band meeting, and they were saying to each other, "Shit, we got to figure out something to do because there's like the world is saturated with great artists who are on the radio and write songs and play instruments. Like we're not new. Like we're not doing something that no one else is doing. And that's when they endeavored to really buckle down and say, all right, we got to write really amazing songs. We have to write good songs, and we have to orchestrate them in very favorable ways. Because if we don't, like from their minds, they were thinking, if we can't do songs like Hotel California, we'll be out on the breadlines in a week. Because they'll say, yeah, we got you and 100 other guys just like you, get lost, losers. And that's kind of a humbling thing for a young artist to hear, that this amazing legendary artist who has tons of hits, they were once where you were, and they were panicking because they thought they weren't going to make it because everyone else was better than them. And that's a very humbling thing to hear from someone that you think is way better than you.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I'm definitely not one to get down on the Eagles. Maybe Don Henley I might have some words about, but who doesn't have words about Don Henley?
it is what it is.
Don't get me wrong, he's on some of my favorite songs, but it's kind of a something.
One of These Nights.
Yeah.
It's another one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
I love the arrangement of that song.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of almost like I've had people listen to that song and they don't know who the Eagles are and they think it's the Bee Gees.
Yeah, it's got such
I kind of get where they're coming from.
It's such a 70s sound.
I'm surprised in all of this, but then again, you do like the Eagles that Steely Dan hasn't come up, because out of that era of music, that's definitely more where I would gravitate towards. Mm-hmm. I really like Steely Dan. I don't dislike Steely Dan, but I'm not like a hardcore fan. You're just too much of a bro. I get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm so mainstream and conventional.
If you want, you've got some time and you want to laugh your ass off, and like go and look up Yacht Rock. It's like a couple up, maybe 12 episode web series you can watch on YouTube, and it's about a fictional best friendship between Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald.
Oh my god!
And it takes place in the back like in the heyday of
smooth, like soft rock, kind of stuff.
That 70s shit. And like there's an episode centered around the Eagles, and in theory the song is how Steely Dan got the Eagles onto FM. Yeah. Because there's like a whole rivalry thing between basically that particular episode, it paints them as a bunch of dumb jocks, and the Steely Dan are just a bunch of nerds. Yeah, and it literally does like the bullying on the school ground kind of shit.
Wow,
it's so fucking funny.
That's going into different levels of the meta that I think most people has lost on them.
Oh no, the entire series is just. Because like, you get Jimmy Buffett in there,
Journey. What the heck is that?
Yeah, like Journey and all those bands that would have been big at that time. Like Hall & Oates is in the second episode where they have a back alley songwriting competition.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But it's so funny. And
I'm gonna have to.
It's literally only funny if you're like a music nerd and know an unnecessary amount of information about musicians. Yeah.
Well, that totally fits into people who are in the libertarian communities, they would like something that's really esoteric, and you have to have a bunch of background information, otherwise it's lost on you. That makes perfect sense for us.
I took a quiz today that said I'm 71% autistic.
Well, there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what are you 29% of then?
I don't know. Italian?
Yeah, there you go.
29% Italian,
autistic or Italian.
Autistic or Italian. There you go.
Yeah, one of the two.
All right, so are you ready for the big question?
You can go with the big question, I guess.
All right, sweet. So if you could have people go out and pick up 5 different albums and listen to them, what would those be?
And why?
And why?
Ooh. This is the kind of pre-show planning type stuff you got to let people know in advance so they don't embarrass themselves.
Here, let me be very specific in this. 5 albums do not have to be your favorite albums by any stretch, and mine change daily, perhaps by the minute. What I would tell people to listen to right now is not what I would have told them to listen to 40 minutes ago.
Okay,
as a musician, that's an impossible question.
Okay, so I'm gonna say because again it's gonna be kind of all over the place based on like where a lot of my favorite songs are, but different types of music. So the debut album of the Lost Lonely Boys, the one that had Heaven on it and some of the songs we talked about earlier, that's a really cool song, and they're interesting because. Like you can't say the Lost Lonely Boys didn't make it. I mean, if you win a Grammy, you've made it, right? Like you're on the scene. I think it's pretty safe to say if you won a Grammy.
I just assume they retired with all those sick 2003 piles of money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're actually going to be playing in Franklin, Tennessee soon. But that's what's interesting about them is that they're not getting the gigs in the huge amphitheaters and stuff because they're not that big. But they did reach that peak at one time. But in some ways, it's kind of better as a music listener because you're going to get to enjoy a more comfortable environment hearing an awesome band. And it's kind of like you get to be the hipster a little bit and like, this is mine. I get to enjoy this and I don't have to be with 100,000 people.
Oh my God, let me tell you about the time I saw My Chemical Romance before Black Parade hit.
Is that you being a hipster?
That is me being a hipster.
Okay.
That was my point.
Yeah.
It was a sweet show, just for the record.
I'd buy that. But yeah, no, that's cool. I like when artists kind of find that spot. That's one of the things I like about John Mayer. That's one of the things I like about Edwin McCain. Like, I like ridiculous music. I get that. But like, he found a niche and he plays indie shows. Like, he'll go out and play a show and then like probably go home to his kids. I'm assuming he has them.
Yeah.
But I think that is good for the fans, and I think it's good for, the person actually making the music to find a sweet spot like that.
You get to not suck and write shitty music too.
Right. You don't have to try and cater to the radio play or whatever.
You can't take away the good stuff. You can't outlive the bad stuff.
Yeah. So I'm going to say number 2, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I feel like saying a live album is cheating because live albums just have a different composition
just
than
for
an
the record,
album.
Remso Martinez used a best of.
Oh, well, we haven't gotten to Eagles' greatest hits yet. Stand by. So John Mayer did
Which one,
Where the Light Is.
Volume 1?
Oh yeah, that's an awesome album.
Where the Light Is, live in Los Angeles with John Mayer, and it was perfect because like disc 1 is the trio, and you have a lot of like blues, and a little bit of jazz, and then disc 2 is more of his popular radio hits. And it spams and it's mostly Room for Squares and Continuum. And Continuum was probably his best studio album. Room for Squares put him on the map. Continuum was like his studio album peak. Mm-hmm. And so disc 1 is the trio, and disc 2 is basically those 2 albums. And it's like, that was a really good song selection.
I remember the exact moment I heard John Mayer for the first time. And I was at home with pneumonia. And I'd been watching the Tommy Knockers, and like it was getting boring, so I switched to something else. And it happened to VH1, and it was the video for No Such Thing.
Oh wow!
And this is like I was still in high school at this point, so this is circa 2002, I think. And I saw the video, and I'm like, this is literally going to change everything. And then it was like I didn't hear much.
Yeah.
And a year later in college, all of a sudden though, Your Body is a Wonderland came out and he fucking blew up huge.
Yeah.
It's like, I just knew he was going to be something. It's so, you could just tell there was something about him that was magnetic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's that short list of like acoustic-y pop rock type artists that all came out in the early 2000-ish, like post Hootie, post Dave Matthews, but not really that style, a little bit more like the individual celebrity pop driven, but a good individual artist. And he kind of like set the tone for those guys. I'm not like, if you're a Jason Mraz fan or a Gavin DeGraw or whatever, you might be thinking, well, I like my guy, John Mayer sucks. But hey, man, look, John Mayer paved the way for some of those guys because he got huge. Yeah. And then a lot of those other, like it became its own little subgenre, right?
Oh yeah, they're like, we can sell this. Okay.
I personally prefer Jason Mraz only because Jason Mraz is a better vocalist, and as a vocalist, like I really gravitate towards that. John Mayer's voice is okay, like he does what he needs to do for what he does. His real strength is as a guitar player. Jason Mraz is a hell of a singer, and like his lyrical style is also more my speed too.
I definitely think Jason Mraz is a more talented vocalist than John Mayer by far. But that's where they're a good offset though, because whereas there's absolutely no argument that Jason Mraz is the better natural vocalist. I mean, John Mayer, you want to talk about like you were saying Stevie Ray Vaughan and that he's overrated, but a lot of people use him as a standard. I have told people on more than a few occasions, like a lot of people play the game of who's the Stevie Ray Vaughan of this era and era and this era. Like the Stevie Ray Vaughan of my era when I was growing up and in college and their 20s and stuff was John Mayer. Like John Mayer was the young guy in music who had that, playing a Strat, clean tone, was just murdering it, that was the guy. And so it's different, but equally mastering in the different areas of vocal or instrumentation. So Lost Lonely Boys debut, then Where the Line Is, John Mayer.
While we're still on John Mayer real quick, I'm curious.
Yeah.
So I may be misremembering this, but I know that I've definitely heard the different versions of it for sure. Isn't there an acoustic version of Room for Squares and an electric version essentially? Or did he just do enough demo versions that like they were out there?
The album Room for Squares, which had No Such Thing, Bodies in Wonderland, My Stupid Mouth, Why Georgia, Neon, City Love, St. Patrick's Day, all those songs, like that was his really big debut. It's probably about 2/3 acoustic driven and about 1/3 electric driven, like obviously Neon and City Love.
I knew that for sure. There's like maybe it's just like he released like an acoustic EP sometime before he really hit, and those are the versions that I'm used to hearing. In particular, No Such Thing stands out to me.
Yes,
there's very different versions of that.
Before he released, like he self-published an album right before he got signed by like Columbia Records and shit, and it was called It just left my mind, but he had an album where some of the songs, it's only like an 8-song EP or whatever, and some of the songs on that album made their way to Room for Squares, and it's basically all acoustic. And so and even though some of those songs were already acoustic, it's very stripped down. Like it's literally just like him with the drum machine. It's not not full band.
To me, is just how impressive those songs were. Because as stripped down as they were, like you hear this dude's fucking, he's got it.
Yeah, and they were more mellow. They were a little bit more low key, like just the arrangements. Whereas like when Room for Squares came along, they were popularized, pop being accentuated there.
Yeah.
They were brought up a little bit, but you're right. I mean, and he's done that later in his career. He has a little like 6-song thing called the Village Sessions, where he brought in like a few of his buddies who were themselves. Like, you've made it when instead of like recording music and going on tour, you're so rich and successful you can just sit at home and invite people like Eric Clapton to hang out and just chill. So he did that with a few guys, and he did the Village Sessions. And again, it's a very small selection of songs that were like from Continuum and one other album, but they're totally stripped down. It's like double acoustic guitar type arrangements, and it's very, very cool. And it's not just cool because of the arrangement, but it's also cool from a musicianship standpoint that as a musician, this is a no room for mistakes music. Like this is, you're sitting there with 2 acoustics, you're trying to make a full sound with just these 2 sets of 6 strings, and it's got to be on point or it doesn't come together. And let me tell you, yes, it is on point.
Nice. I don't know. I have a lot of material by him. I don't know that I've ever heard of that one. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
The Village Sessions, it's really cool. So all the songs on it, you will have heard the songs before, but a lot of them have been stripped down to be like duo acoustic type thing, and it's really cool.
It sounds awesome.
All right. Where are we going to next, Liz?
Number 3.
So Oscar Peterson, Night Train. That's kind of like, that's one of those things where that album has been cited by so many people as the album that they, got from the record store a long time ago, and that motivated them to get into that style of music or become musicians or whatever. So, I mean, so that was 1963 is when Night Train came out. And that had the song Night Train, which was originally Duke Ellington. You had Sea Jam Blues. You had Georgia on My Mind. And then, side 2, you had some things like I Got It Bad and That Ain't Good. Band Call, which were both Ellington pieces again, too. So, like, you have some of that really, really old music that has, and that's one of the cool things about it's cool but weird about jazz, is that, in the jazz community, a lot of classics have been redone like 80 times by different artists.
Well, I mean, that's kind of because I think that's the nature of it being an improvisational music. It's all about what you do to something that's very stock. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, when you have one of these like transcendent generational artists come along who record a few of those songs, and it's like that becomes the new staple. Like that's one of those things where I know you mentioned Hendrix, like Hendrix did All Along the Watchtower and stuff like that, and I don't want to hit a nerve with you, but you know how it is that there's those certain songs that a transcendental type artist can come along and can do a classic song, and they remake it in such a way that it becomes its own, even though it's quote unquote a cover, it's now its own entity. I'm not a big Dave Matthews fan, but Dave Matthews' version of All Along the Watchtower pretty much puts all the others to shame, in my opinion.
Okay.
All those crazy sax solos on it, it's so good.
Yeah.
Well, you're a sax player, though, so that probably colors.
Yeah. So, Oscar Peterson came along, and he did some of these songs, and he did his own Sea Jam. He did his own Georgia on My Mind. And it's like those, like they were just so well done. It's no longer just a cover. It's now become its own body of work. It's exclusive to him, even though he wasn't the original writer or artist. That, like I said, Night Train is probably one of those that if you were to just sample 100 random jazz musicians and say what some of your biggest inspirations, you'll hear Oscar Peterson many times.
Isn't Night Train also one of Prima's big ones? Because it's one of those ones that like Sam Butera has like a really iconic sax part on. I think I'm thinking of something different though.
It might be. Night Train was done by James Brown, like way back when, and James Brown is a much different style than a smooth jazz pianist like an Oscar Peterson. But like I said, it becomes its own thing, and it's really cool. It's like that is the ultimate challenge for an artist out there. That if you're thinking I'm going to go cover this song and I'm gonna make it my own thing, like that's the real challenge, is to do it in such a way that it treads that perfect line in between. You're not just copying them note for note and ripping it off, but you're also not making it uber experimental and quote unquote like ruining the composition. You're making it its own entity. But again, like the biggest tip of the hat to an Oscar Peterson in that album is you can go to a studio where a bunch of session players are and say, hey, who here has been motivated by Night Train? And all the hands are going up. It's one of those type of albums.
It's the Nirvana of his generation, but never mind.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that's 3.
Okay.
So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say, Eagles' greatest hits.
Okay, fair enough.
Which one? The single disc, the double disc?
Oh, you have to do the double because, again, it's, I don't want to rehash the whole conversation of who does and doesn't like the Eagles. But, the fact of the matter is whatever your impression of the individual artists that make up the band or whatever, the fact of the matter is the dudes, like, if you're a one-hit wonder, you're in the top 1%, right? Like, you're a 1%er if you're a one-hit wonder. God forbid you have a follow-up that's even remotely as successful. You're now in, like, the 0.1% of all music artists. So if you have, like, 27 chart toppers, it's unheard of. It's ridiculous.
And they have that.
It's ridiculous. That's what makes the Eagles the Eagles. In that within those songs, because Frey sang some of the songs, Henley sang some of the songs, Timothy Schmidt sang some of the songs, Joe Walsh has some songs, so that they're kind of they're doing sort of this like rotational frontman with certain songs being more driven by different instrumentation.
And that's a hard thing to pull off too.
Yes. And so you can have the Eagles' greatest hits, and you're only listening to the Eagles, but you're actually going to listen to a lot of different kind of songs.
Like, very few people know that the Goo Goo Dolls had more than one vocalist in their band, and that the shitty one got famous.
Because he was pretty.
He was pretty. I'll give him that. That's about what he's got. if you didn't know, Alan, the bass player for the the Goo Goo Dolls actually used to be one of the vocalists back in the day. And back when they used to do like actual like sort of pop punk, even thrashy music at times. And then name happened and it ruined them.
Yeah, I could see that.
There's people that think that they started with the song Iris.
Yeah, that's just horrifying.
As if Boy Named Goo didn't even happen, as a giant hit as that album was.
I feel like we're going down a rabbit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is a whole nother tangent. Number 5.
And so for the last one, I want to put a jazz crooner one on there, and I could pick something like a Sinatra, but I'm gonna pick a Michael Bublé album just because anyone listening to this is probably more likely to go to the record store and find Bublé today than they are to dig out Sinatra or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't his first album, but it was his first album that probably really got him charting. Was It's Time. It's the one that had that song Home on it. You know, I'm coming home, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Because he needed to have an original on the album.
Well, you got to have your little poppy thing because that's what's going to get radio play. Because look, man, the radio play ain't playing Try a Little Tenderness or A Foggy Day in London Town. You know, Gershwin ain't big on top 40 nowadays.
Just for the record,
flipping shame.
Still not the best version of Try a Little Tenderness.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not picking this album because I think necessarily any of the songs he covered on here are the best ones.
It's rotation for a while for me, so I like them.
The selection of this album is pretty good. Like, you've got Feeling Good, which is a classic.
Yeah,
Foggy Day in London Town, which is actually one of my favorites to perform, which is a Gershwin tune.
Mm-hmm.
You Don't Know Me, Eddie Arnold, that's a classic jazz tune. I really, and he did a good job with that one. He did.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, you have Home, which is a poppy one. You know, whatever. He's got a Beatles tune on there, which I actually don't really like, but it's more that like he made the attempt to have a lot of different influences on the album.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Save the Last Dance for Me, Try a Little Tenderness, How Sweet It Is, Song for You, which he did with Chris Bodie, who is like the greatest trumpet guy ever. Is Chris Bodie, which that's a Leon Russell tune, and Leon Russell actually has been around the Tennessee area for a little while, so that's kind of interesting. I mean, I've Got You Under My Skin, which, I mean, a lot of people know Sinatra, but it's originally Cole Porter. And then the last song on there, it's kind of like the throwaway one, is You and I, which is a Stevie Wonder ballad. And he does a pretty good job. And so again, it's not that any one of those songs is like going to change your life, but it's a very interesting combination of songs that goes in between the popular and the more jazz centric from different areas. And I think it's pretty fair to say he's a competent artist, so he can physically handle doing a wide array of tunes.
Yeah.
It's just a good mix. It's a good mix of, like, if you're saying I want to be introduced to him, I also want to be introduced to like crooner jazz, but I don't know where to start, and I don't want to go digging through my grandpa's album case. Where do I start? This is not a bad place to look.
You wouldn't say Tony Bennett.
I don't really love Tony Bennett.
Me neither. He's got this thing about Tony Bennett, and I'm just like, I mean, he's all right. Whatever. But
of all the guys that do that,
give me Dean Martin, man.
I do like Dean Martin.
Yeah.
Dean Martin, out of all the Rat Pack guys, he's definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
But that's more a jealousy thing, because he's got that low voice I can't do.
Yeah, I like Dean Martin more. I mean, like the last time that I recorded anything, like I did like just a little 8-song EP type thing, and I did. I did some of the obvious ones, like I did Come Fly With Me, and I did do Foggy Day in London Town, and I did it very much in kind of like the Bublé arrangement, because I do like his. I did The Way You Look Tonight, and I did Ain't That a Kick in the Head.
Oh, nice.
Which that's a fun song to do.
Yeah.
You have to. That's one of those where, I mean, I'm not Italian. I'm very much just a Southern, predominantly German descendancy, and but you have to figure out a way to get a little bit of that roll in your voice, or you're not quite doing it the right way. So that was fun. So I mean, I like Dean Martin. Like I said, it's not necessarily that I'm saying that one performance or one artist is necessarily the best. I just like good songs and good performances in general.
Well, I factually disagree with that statement, because the best version of the fucking what the hell was I talking about, Liz, just now?
Try a Little
Tenderness is in the movie The Commitments, and it's sung by a 16-year-old kid. Without question, nothing will ever top that. Just not possible.
All right. Well, you heard it here first.
There you go.
I mean, I probably said it before. It's that damn important. And there was another one of those ones that was on that record that has like a really, really good, interesting verse. Oh yeah, it was I Got You Under My Skin. I think my favorite voice version of that is actually Michael C. Hall from the movie Gamer.
Wow.
Which is the most ridiculous thing ever because he's so... It's one of my favorite villains in a movie. I've never seen a movie villain where they literally did no development. Like, usually they have, like, goals, like they want money or something. They literally gave the villain of a live-action movie his literal drive was world domination. Just wanted world domination. Like, literally. Literal world domination. That was what he wanted.
Kevin Spacey did a pretty good version of Across the Sea, but that was also before he was raping everybody.
Yeah,
he'd been raping people for a long time at that point.
Yeah.
But, we didn't know he was raping people.
And I want to say, that was Beyond the Sea. That was the name of the movie. And I always think of Dee Lovely when I'm thinking of covers of stuff, because there's some really fun Cole Porter covers on the soundtrack to that one.
Yeah, there is. See, that's the beautiful thing about jazz and standards in general, is that even no one would say that is popular music in 2019, but it endures. It really does. Like, it's one of those things where, I mean, and maybe I'm just a homer for that style or that sort of classic feel, but whatever Nicki Minaj does this year will be popular, but it won't be popular not even a decade from now. It sure as hell won't be popular a century from now. But this shit will.
Well, how about this? We can go into the ANCAP stuff.
Good lord.
Where we say, so do you think this is a failing of IP, in that IP forces artists to have to create new stuff as opposed to working on stuff that's already great? You want to have your writing credit to make your money because you're not going to make credit any other way.
So, in the typical greedy capitalist fashion, I'm going to say that I tend to lean towards the Stephan Kinsella view of being anti-IP. With that said, I'm anti everyone else's intellectual property. I'm going to keep mine.
Okay.
Greedy capitalists.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Well, we had our next episode of The Gold Standard that's coming out, that'll come out next week, is with Walter Block. Okay. And I was trying to throw him a softball because I really just want him to rant, because that's what you do when you have a guest, right? Like, my producer Blake has a little timer. I'm looking at how much time's left in the segment, and I'm thinking, I don't really have 18 minutes worth of content, so I'm just going to throw Walter something to get him mad, and he'll rant for 18 minutes, and then we're done. And so I said something to him along the lines of, so would you consider X, Y, and Z a market failure? And I knew that would trigger him, because Walter's opinion is there's no such thing as a market failure. And so since I knew that was a conversational non-starter, I was like, oh, here we go. Like, I've said his trigger words, and now he's going to go on a 3-hour rant about how there's no such thing and all of this is bullshit. And he did not disappoint. That's exactly where that's how I feel about your question about IP. Is I'm thinking I need to frame it in such a way that everyone gets really upset, and then that way it takes up the time.
There you go. Nice.
I've been told I need to get Walter Block on here. I don't know how that would go.
He's a really, I'll tell you what, my strategy, like, as far as how the Gold Standard operates, because we do our show, and I'm very fortunate to have a really awesome friend and producer in Blake, that we actually have a professional studio, multiple camera set, all the cool production stuff that we have. Mm-hmm. But that also challenges us to meet that standard, right? Like, okay, we have this production quality, now we need the content to match. Like, if you're going to try to be Craig Ferguson, then by God, you better be making a good show. And one of my more recent strategies has been to begun bringing on people like a Walter Block, but not talking to them about things that you expect him to hear on every program you've ever heard. And I'm not denigrating, like, I'm not naming names. I'm not saying this guy or that guy has a shitty show. I'm not going there. But what I'm saying is you know what I mean. Like, if you knew Walter Block was going to be on a show, there's certain things you just kind of expect are going to be the topics, because of those are kind of things he would talk about, or it's going to be about libertarianism. It's going to be about some of his recent articles or whatever. Like, that's expected, and there's a place for that. You kind of touched on this with Tom Woods. Like, there's a place for that, and it's valuable.
If you're into the academic stuff, you go to Tom Woods, hands down.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to have on that guy, but we're actually going to talk about the Saints.
Yeah.
Look, don't get into cryptid territory.
And then we got to talking about hot dog sandwiches and stuff like that. So, like, but in my opinion, maybe I'm just, again, it's my show, so I'm going to think it's awesome. But in my opinion, it's fun to see this guy that you look up to as being this very brilliant, very academic guy, but hear them talk about fun and different things, so that you learn a little bit more about who they are as a person.
Oh, absolutely.
No, I think I just genuinely believe that's where this whole quote-unquote industry that we're in is headed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you with the premise of your show 1,000%.
Like, we can only fight about fucking like it's at a certain point, it's just quibbling. Yeah. Like, no one is ever going to have, like, as individuals, we're never going to agree on everything. So let's just talk about stuff instead of that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why one of our ongoing bits on our show and on our page is, when we're giving people our social media links and whatever, we always say, so go to this link so that you can drop us a line, let us know where you disagree so we can ban you. And then for the people who actually take me up on my offer and show up and say, I'm going to say something stupid to see if he bans me, I actually don't ban them. What I do first is I give them a little message. Of course, I'm doing it publicly so everyone can see it. I give them a little message that says, I'm going to send you a link that's going to give you the information you need to make the decision that's best for you. And of course, it's always a link to euthanasia.com. That's how I handle it. Like, I don't argue with people. Like, sometimes people will tag me on Facebook and say, Alan, check this out. I don't argue with people. I just say, well, go kill yourself. Mm-hmm. There you go. That's it. But in my defense, because I know some people are like, well, that's not a good representation of libertarianism. That's not good for the movement. Well, first of all, go kill yourself. And second of all, I learned this from John Miltimore, who's the editor of Fee. When I've written some articles, he's the guy you submit them to. He was the one who had said to me, Alan, don't get into exchanges in the comments, because your comment is the article. That's your comment. So, like, your show, like, Sounds Like Liberty is your comment. You don't have to follow it up with bickering with a bunch of retarded neckbeards, because yours was the show. You've made your contribution. So don't drop down to the level of these people who haven't actually written or done anything in their lives.
Yeah. My thing is, like, when in some of the groups that I happen to be in, there's a high propensity of Joyces. And that becomes where my issues start. It's really, really hard not to want to comment back on racist bullshit.
I tell you what.
I married a beautiful black woman, and I have no problems about it. It's the best part of my life. And
I'm not even going to deign to open up that can of worms again. People who are online are going to know what that's about. All I'm going to say is that, you know what? I wasn't even triggered by that because she said something mean in general. Like, if she had messaged me and said, your show's stupid, you're ugly, I'd have been like, okay, neat.
Yeah. I really don't care.
I actually got mad because she directed it at Anna Kay. That's actually what made me mad. I was thinking, well, that's weird because first of all, euthanasia.com, go kill yourself. And second of all, like, Anna Kay is a way better person than I am. Like, exactly. I mean, let's be honest here. I'm just another generic overweight white dude who's trying to be a late night talk show host. If Anna Kay were the host, if my show were exactly the same, but it were Anna Kay, she'd have like 10 million fans because she's beautiful and compassionate and all that. Since it's me and it's just this hateful, angry dude named Alan, the show is what it is.
Alan
so
is a pretty
I actually
hateful name. I didn't want to be a dick, but.
Yeah, no. Hey, sometimes if the shoe fits, you gotta wear it. So.
I don't think of your brother as an Alan, though.
He is. He's an Alan.
I know he's an Alan, but I don't think of him as an Alan.
It's even spelled.
What do you think of him as?
Liz's brother.
Oh, well, there you go. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I was hoping you were going to say something like Jerome, so I could call you a racist.
No, he doesn't even have a Jerome name.
Here, the problem is if you've ever met my wife or her family, I'm the blackest person in the room, hands down.
Yeah,
there is that.
I'm sure everyone who's only seen your picture online and has never met you are all thinking exactly the same thing.
Right? Clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, clearly. You know, I love that we can talk about stuff like this because that's, you know, like today when we do the show, we always end the show with, so is a hot dog or a sandwich. But I tell people, you know, I love saying buzzwords that triggers snowflakey people. Like, and I'm not even doing it to do that. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not trying to be a troll. But I do say the word retard because it's fun. I call lots of people retards. I still call people fags. Look, dude, I was still in school not that long ago, and I promise you, we never once called a gay person a fag. Never one time. We always called people fags because they were being fags.
Well, it's that old Louis C.K.
Is that
thing.
Louis C.K.?
Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Louis C.K. goes, you know, so when you come across somebody and they're like, people from Phoenix are Phoenicians, you say, shut up, faggot. And that has nothing to do with homosexual in any way. It's totally divorced.
In the other half of that joke that makes it make sense is where he's talking about, he's like, he's talking to a gay person. He's like, continue sucking that dick.
Yeah, the end of that joke is he's like, so if I come across a couple of gay guys sucking each other off, you know, I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to say, good evening, gentlemen. You know, but if one of the guys takes the dick out of his mouth and he says something all faggy like the people from Phoenix thing, I'll say, hey, shut up, faggot. Quit being a faggot and suck that dick.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now I look forward to all your angry emails and messages.
Yeah.
Things,
you know.
the things we just said.
I'm gonna be honest. I've said some shit on here that they haven't boycotted us yet. I don't know. Maybe we're too small to be boycotted at this point.
I don't know. Maybe.
You know, it goes along to the same concept of having on the guests and talking about like real, regular, everyday stuff. Is I agree with you that I agree with you in what you think the direction the market is going as far as doing programs like this, and I think that, you know, we see all the crazy cultural Marxist stuff on Twitter or whatever, but you know, in the real world, like 93% of the people that could potentially listen to this do not care about any of that. And if anything, you're talking the way they talk in regular life. Now, sure, they may not post that on their social media and risk getting fired from their job, but I mean, I don't know about you, but in the real world where I'm from, people say words and sometimes people don't like them, and their reaction is you just go on living your life.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and here's how I know that this is going in the direction that I say it's going in. They announced it on this the Lions of Liberty just did a libertarians in living rooms drinking liquor last week, and they're apparently going to be bringing. They don't have enough time to do them in like the normal schedule to do them regularly, so they're actually going to start doing them on each other's programs as opposed to it just being on the Mark Claire Day. They're going to start doing it, you know, on the John Odermatt Day and on the Electric Liberty Land Day too, to get them in there because everybody far and wide loves the Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor episodes of the show, which is just libertarians bullshitting.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever seen the Graham Norton show, like that did that for talk shows. It was just like, you know, people sit around and talk. Like, you don't have to have talking points, just talk.
At the end of the day, what is the number one podcast out there?
What, Rogan?
Yeah, Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan. Yeah.
He just talks about
3-hour-long rambling conversations about what the fuck ever.
Yeah.
People have the appetite for it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well, and Rogan kind of does a little bit of what we attempt to do too, which is if you're going to have like a famous athlete or an actor or a scientist or whatever,
get them high first.
Sometimes people really enjoy seeing those people, but they just talk like dudes. They just talk like what you would talk about when you're just hanging out at lunch.
And then sometimes they talk like they're from another planet. Like in the case of Steven Tyler.
This is true. Whatever. They do talk about, it does get out there sometimes.
His episode was actually difficult to listen to.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what he does on that show. People get weird on that show.
He pulled out a crystal ball in the middle of the episode.
People get really weird on that show. I don't know why. Is there anything we should plug before we let you go?
You know what? I'm gonna put on my gold standard with Alan Mosley hat for a second.
Nice.
So, guys, thanks for listening. You can join us on social media, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. You can find me on Twitter, which is @Alan M. Mosley. But you don't have to do any of that because you can just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
Nice.
And of course, our little network is Little L Productions, which is of course my partner Sherry Voluntary and Mike Meharry. Of course, Mike does sports ball with me. He also does Godarchy with Mike Meharry.
All right, Alan, it's been an awesome time, man. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
I appreciate it, guys. Y'all take care.
Until you're rolling, until your heart can bear.